So, a lot of people seem to think that it's morally wrong for a 36-year-old man to rescue an 18-year-old heroin addict. My question is it morally wrong for my mother to have sex with a minor? Good question. By the way, that minor was in my class in high school. Um, Sheriff Scott DaCosta, he knew that I was going after his officers for not doing their jobs. He was well fucking aware of that. Now, I want them to be trained in how to deal with people, especially autistic people, when they're in crisis. I don't go into crisis for no fucking reason. Right now, my phone is downloading another video, one about Amy Witcher, the conversations between her and I. Historically, I've had issues with it downloading both on my phone and here while I'm making a live video, but we'll see how it works. My phone's almost dead, so if it doesn't work the first time around, I'll try it again. It really takes a while for it to download anyway. Um, as far as Jamie goes, I'm going to make a video about all of the messages between me and her son, and I'm going to post them up here. Those will not be made public. Um, he's not old enough for them to be public, but those need to be entered in as evidence. Um, kind of a screwy situation. Like I said, with the situation with Rand Ingersoll, I posted all that up. The conversations between me and Ray Ray. There's a couple more I got to download as well. The cops across the United States were pretty well just pieces of shit. And when you're homeless, people don't give you the benefit of the doubt. They hate you just because you're homeless. They don't care if you have a job, they're going to tell you to get a job anyway. Um, as far as Amy and Andrew go, the shit that they pulled while I was living in Sydney was really fucked up. And I had Desiree who stole my things. And there's a tiny chance that the bullshit story that Desiree told me is true. Maybe Kevin McGregor came all the way down from Cheyenne and tasered her, like she said, and took her back to that meth house in Cheyenne. But the thing is, I was watching Amy and Andrew's kids a fucking shit ton, nearly every day. And Desiree, being somebody who's trying to recover from meth, she needed to keep her mind busy. And leaving her alone in that apartment was not healthy for her. It really wasn't. I did hook her up with Corona Counseling and Nicole Peralta and all of them. And they were kind of sort of trying to help her. For the most part, they seem to be more into the sliding fee scale. They're into getting paid. But it was just an all around fucked up situation. Just like the situation with Jamie. I mean, you fuck. That woman is twisted and manipulative. But I mean, I'm used to it. I knew that. I knew that years and years ago. She's the one that broke me of falling in love. I don't fall in love. I don't. Either I love you or I don't. And it's as simple as that. A lot of these people who threw me away like I was garbage, I do love them. A lot of the people that I blocked, I do love them. I'm just not going to take their abuse. At the same time, if you're going to lie to me and you're going to bullshit me, yeah, I'm going to be verbally abusive. I really will. If Somebody is being harmed, physically harmed, and you say nothing. You're a piece of shit straight up. I don't give a holy goddamn if I love you or not. You need to fucking say something. If you're too afraid to come out in public, that's not my fault. I'll do it. I don't get embarrassed. I don't. I'm scared, yeah, but I'm not a coward. Being tortured in the jails. I mean, the only thing that I could do was take the abuse, give them what they wanted so that I could have a chance of getting free long enough to show the truth. Being stuck with a bunch of alcoholics and meth dealers, and yes, that's all on here too. I mean, when I was in Virginia, I showed evidence of the shit that I had to deal with there, and the constant fucking screaming and the fucking meth sales and all that shit. Yes, it's on YouTube, on this channel, matter of fact. Um, Getting back to Scott DaCosta, that's the sheriff here in Door County. I would love to feel comfortable going in alone to speak to the police. In order to go to the police and not be treated the way that they treated me when I went in alone, because they did treat me completely different when I went in alone. Just like they treat me completely different here when they know that they're being filmed live. But it's a really fucked up situation. I mean, first of all, they knew exactly what they were doing with Cody Selhorst and his repeated fucking bullshit. Yeah, that didn't need to happen. As far as Jace Jepson, his conversation between him and I uh, is on here on YouTube as well, and I have his permission to have it up here. Um, he did not know I was filming it when I was filming it, but I let him know, and he was fine with it. He speaks about the time with Officer Scott DaCosta or Sheriff Scott DaCosta over there at Pumpkin Pantry, and Sheriff Scott DaCosta doesn't remember that apparently. And that's the thing, is that when there was witnesses like Jared Hahn, when he said that he remembered the situation with Molly Smith going in with me, well, he's not going to be able to deny that there's a witness. When I chased him around town, there were plenty of people, I am sure, that saw it. Do I know exactly who would have seen it? No, I don't. I was busy driving. Um, but that was literally the day after I spoke with Molly Smith, and Deputy Hahn pretended like he doesn't remember that. How do you not remember somebody chasing you through town, especially as an officer? He pulled over at Chapel Lake, not far from here, and he got out of his vehicle. What an asshole, right? Getting out of his vehicle is fine. It was the things that he said. I said, dude, I still need you to take my report. There's a lot more going on here. He said, I already took your report, and he got back in his vehicle and drove off. And that's when I started screeching my vehicle through town the first time. See, I did that twice. Once at that time, and I did it once again after the whole Martindale fiasco. Fuck you, Justine. Now, the thing that pisses me off the most is that there was a lot of evidence on those phones, and I was fucking lucky that I was able to save those phones through all of the hell that I've been through. I was lucky as hell to keep them as long as I did. Those were chock full of evidence that needed to be shown, it needed to be seen. And I saved as much as I could, but those phones eventually got full of evidence, full of screenshots. There wasn't enough room on there to take another screenshot. trying to get them transferred to the computer. The other computer, I can't transfer something from my phone to the other computer. I can't. As far as Jamie's twisted manipulation, I mean, yeah, me and Stegman have conversations about that from time to time. I got a recording on the other computer between me and Chris. It's probably about 45 minutes long. And we don't talk about Jamie a whole lot during that. We really don't. Um, we do talk about a lot of other situations and a lot of other scenarios. But there's a lot to be said about this whole situation. I didn't want to go public with any of this. The thing is, I've been stuck with the mentally ill tag since I was a kid. No matter what, people can do whatever they want to me. And even though by law I should be protected, I'm not. That's because I don't have a guardian. I don't have anybody of that sort. Um, they use my intelligence to prevent me from being able to defend myself. My intelligence means that I should be able to magically do things that I'm not able to do. And then when my intelligence is what they need to listen to, they pretend like I'm mentally ill. So that way, I never actually get to make a statement. They pretend I'm mentally ill when I go in to make a statement. And then they pretend that I should have been able to make a statement and didn't want to because I'm intelligent. At this point in time, yeah, I can't go in to talk to a police officer by myself. A lot of the stuff that I'm dealing with, it's across multiple jurisdictions, multiple counties, across the entire United States, matter of fact. I mean, there were some officers that were really nice. There really were. In Bristol, Virginia, one of the officers that I spoke with, he seemed to understand autism pretty well. Matter of fact, he and I spoke about me possibly going in and helping to teach them about autism, about sensory overload. And you don't have to be autistic to have sensory overload. You can have PTSD and have sensory overload. Here's a way to tell if you have sensory overload. I want you to turn on the radio and then turn on the TV. And now I want you to pay attention to what's going on both of them. Are you overwhelmed? All right, now try to have a conversation with the radio on. There was an occasion when I was talking to Kat on the ride to Washington State. Me and Kat were having a conversation in the vehicle, and he blares the radio really loud, and I had to concentrate extremely hard to have a conversation with him. And for the most part, the only reason that we were able to have a conversation at all is because I already knew what I was going to say. I already knew the points that I needed to make, and that's pretty well what I stuck with. Um, right now, the guy I'm staying with is downstairs watching Game of Thrones, which it's no big thing. I'm upstairs now, and even though it's pretty chilly up here, I got my arms underneath my armpits. Um, I've got a desk now to sit in, thanks to Laura Nelson. Um, it's something. Um, there's the other officers, like Deputy Holloway. I do like Deputy Holloway, and I think Deputy Fisher's all right too. But you guys got to hear Deputy Greenman saying that if I want that video recording of the what I had to say on the ride to Scotts Bluff, or that I have to get a lawyer. I don't have the money for a lawyer. I've called lawyers. They say you need this and you need that and you need the witnesses to come forward. And the witnesses said that they would. So many witnesses said that they would, and they just never got around to it. A lot of the slander that was in court that prevented me from having an honest court date. I was held on slander. They tried pretending that I don't go to court. Meanwhile, I literally went to every single court date, every single one, over 20 court dates between the beginning of January, or between January of 2018 and August of 2018. I went to every single court date, every one, every single one. And with each one of those court dates, I had to go meet with a public pretender who didn't show up most of the time. And with each one of those meetings with the lawyer or public pretender, I had a meeting that I was supposed to have with their investigators. So we're talking about over 60 appointments that I had to go to, and each one of them on a different day. And that all cost money. Money that should have been used to get me somewhere safe. Money that should have been used to take care of myself. A lot of people are pissed off that I went public with this stuff. I shouldn't have had to, but because of the term mentally ill and because I don't have family, it didn't fucking matter. I mean, the only time that I've ever actually gotten any actual help is when somebody has gone in with me. That's it. Only when people go in with me. Other than that, I mean, you're just a fucking number to a government worker. You might get a social worker who started their job. It's their first year there and they actually give a shit. But after a year, yeah, it's just a fucking job. It's just a paycheck. As far as when Amy told me that her daughter had told her that Andrew was the one who molested her, mind you, the last time that I spoke with Amy and Andrew, prior to that, um, Andrew was so fucked up out of his mind. All right, he was getting fucked up on methamphetamines every fucking day. He was leaving to go to his meth dealer's house, and if I wasn't able to babysit, I saw him going to his meth dealer's house with his two youngest children. He would leave the two that were not his kids, because they're older, at the house alone. And he would go down to his meth dealer's house with these two little girls. And I tried telling Amy that. She's like, oh no, he's not using meth. He's not doing meth. I'm like, how is he not? You can tell the difference between him sober and him on meth. It's night and day. Now, Jamie, it's kind of difficult to tell if she's on meth or not. But that depends on how much she used. While I was up there in South Dakota last time, she was not on meth. She wasn't. Um, but when she was younger, she did quite a bit. That was a great deal of the issue that we had when she was trying to date me. Is that no, I don't want to do meth. I don't want nothing to do with that stuff. It's gross. As far as getting harassed by people, I can't go in and talk to the police every time that somebody harasses me or threatens me. I can't get somebody to go in with me to do that. And I'm not going to risk getting treated like I do when it's just me. I can't. I can't risk the police officers doing that to me. They know what they did is wrong. They know that what they did is not only immoral, it's illegal. It's a felony, multiple felonies at this point. The only protection that I have from the police is the one time that Molly Smith went in with me and the one time that Laura Nelson went in with me. Now, with Laura Nelson, I talked about some situations that she wasn't there for. There are also situations that she was there for that she needed to speak out about, but she's afraid to do so. And thank goodness she did tell that to Deputy Holloway. She did tell Deputy Holloway that she was afraid to come forward because she lives on Main Street, or she, you know, has a business right on Main Street here. And she's got a son that she doesn't want getting targeted. This is important shit. Shit that the public doesn't get to hear, but at least she said it. At least she told him that. Now, she also told me about the conversation that she had with the sheriff and that he was asking pointed questions. He wasn't seeming like he was interested in what was going on or my safety. The things that Deputy Holloway had to say, those were pretty important. The things that Deputy Holloway said were in direct contradiction to what Sheriff Scott DaCosta had said in that very same video, at the very beginning of that video with Deputy Holloway. I mean, that's Scott DaCosta talking, making false claims. Things that if you listen to the conversation between Jace Jeffson and I, you realize that Scott DaCosta is completely full of shit. But then there's the jurisdictional stuff that they're telling me. The jurisdictional stuff. Well, where is that jurisdictional stuff when it was the other way around? That's what I want to know. Sheriff Scott DaCosta, when I went in there and had Jen Beebe show up, that was specifically so that I could make a report about the things that Cody Selhorst did and the things that Jared Hahn did. And Jared Hahn and Cody Selhorst got to be there to be intimidating. Fuck those guys. The other thing is, if I'm talking to the police, if I am in your office and talking to you, obviously I'm not trying to kill myself. I'm trying to make a fucking police report. Obviously. But police across the board did everything they could to repeatedly put me on suicide watch when I tried to turn in officers. They used suicide watch to prevent me from being able to speak out against their officers. Police officers repeatedly, when I would write something about the officers who were harming me, they would have that officer bring me back my paperwork and say, he's not going to take it. I need to get a lawyer when I get out. And then they would ship me to somewhere else. And my public pretenders would lie to me repeatedly. And all of that needed to be recorded. There needs to be audio recording devices in every courtroom in America. There need to be audio recording devices. If you are a public pretender, you absolutely need to be recorded. Especially when you are with a client who is considered mentally ill or a client who is homeless. Repeatedly, my public pretenders did not show up. Repeatedly, my public pretenders would not look at evidence or even requisition it. The body cameras from the officers on January 6th of 2018, those should have been entered into evidence. They weren't. You guys, some of you got to hear that conversation between me and the public pretenders offices, because I made multiple calls to all of those public pretenders offices saying that they don't get to choose that. That's not up to them. That's up to the DA. It's the DA's fault then, right? It's the DA's fault that they didn't gather all of the evidence, right? It's the DA's fault that omitted evidence, right? It's always somebody else's fault when it comes to the government. I had to do illegal things to try to force the police to do their jobs. Meanwhile, there were people who said they would go in with me. And when it came to the point where we could, those people just didn't. They always had an excuse why they couldn't. Always. Yeah, I'm not going to stop speaking out. You can kiss my ass. The thing is that I was harassed repeatedly. I was harassed, threatened, and assaulted to the point where I had no other options. And these people sitting in their cozy homes, getting to see their loved ones, getting to see my loved ones, getting to defend themselves, not being cast out into a hateful public that was never shown the truth, never allowed to see the truth. I want the sheriff of this town in prison because what he did is a felony. What Cody Selhorse did is a felony. What Jared Hahn did is a felony. And these guys just keep repeatedly lying over and over and over and over again. Before August of 2018, I didn't lie. I take that back. My grandma's funeral, I threatened to kill Ted Bollinger. I absolutely did that. And I very much said why. If anything happens to Danica Garner or her children, if anything happens to Rose Kelly or her children, if anything happens to Rochelle Shelley Campbell or her children, if anything happens to Alicia, I was very specific about it. Now, there's a lot of evidence that was on those phones that police refused to look at. They refused to collect evidence, no matter where I was. They refused to take a look at it. When I was trying to turn in Officer McRae, she used Suicide Watch to prevent me from doing that. I wasn't trying to kill myself. I wasn't even saying that I was going to kill myself. Having to deal with those officers, having to deal with those public pretenders' offices not doing their fucking jobs, having to deal with evidence being stolen by the police. And they did repeatedly. They even stole pictures of Natalie. Can you imagine that? What the fuck would they want to steal pictures of her for? They were pictures that I was drawing for Natalie's mother before I went to Virginia. I was drawing those pictures for Natalie's mom. And Officer Brian Valenzuela took that evidence. These officers across multiple jurisdictions took part in this, but I wasn't allowed to show evidence from any of those jurisdictions. My public pretender refused to do anything to look at it. Those officers' body cameras needed to be requisitioned. The footage from the jails needs to be requisitioned, all of them. People need to see what it is that those officers did to me. If this happened, if this happened to any of you, you guys would be just as pissed, if not more so. Half of you would have either killed yourselves or killed someone else. The rest of you would be fucking. Well, there aren't many people who can take as much hell as I can. But I survived the system as a child. I knew what to be afraid of. Now, there's a lot of people who are homeless, and they understand the homeless part. There are a lot of people who've been molested, and they understand the being molested part. When I try to explain to somebody who's never been homeless the homeless part, they make excuses. They automatically start making excuses. They put on this mask that prevents them from hearing anything that you say, and their lips just move. Having to deal with Sheriff Scott DaCosta is the biggest spit in the face ever. 4th of July of last year, my plan was to come here to Chapel, Nebraska and arrest that son of a bitch. Having to do all this from public places or places where you have an alcoholic screamer or a meth head and his fucking meth head girlfriend screaming at each other. I mean, I got a lot of fucking trauma, a lot of PTSD. Those aren't safe environments. And if you're not being traumatic in your real life, in the environment that I'm in, if you take a break from being dramatic and fucking shitty to each other, then you're busy watching people be dramatic and shitty to each other on TV, killing each other, hacking each other to pieces. And I say, hey, that's traumatic for me, but you don't care. And then later on, you're like, oh well, I stopped watching that. That's what Amanda Engline said. Well, I stopped watching that. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you stopped watching it once it was already over. I mean, she watched the whole fucking series while I was there. The guy I'm staying with is on his third time going through that. I mean, it's a bunch of fucking killing and a bunch of fucking incest. It's fucking gross. Now, Atlanta and Amanda's, I at least had my own room, which is more than I can say for most of the places that I was. At least in that room, I could work on the things that I needed to. But Amanda wasn't in there with me to see what it is that I was working on. In fact, the internet wouldn't work well enough. I mean, if you guys saw the videos from back then, although that YouTube channel has been taken down because I threatened Ted Bollinger on it, the fact is that it was very splotchy. I mean, a lot of people were complaining that they couldn't hear what I was saying or that it was too splotchy or, whatever. And I get it. I really do. Now, once that other video was done downloading and it's up here on my YouTube, then I have to take it and I have to plug it into this computer so that what's on it will be downloaded to the computer and it'll go to my Net10 pictures file. And that way it's permanently in here. And then that way I can still access it at a later date. I mean, the biggest problem that I've had, it's not just a safe environment for me, it's a safe environment for the evidence. One thing that I'm worried about here, I would like to help the guy that I'm staying with completely pay off his house. I think he needs like $1,000, which isn't a lot of money, but when you don't have an income, it's a lot of money. And summertime's coming, so he's going to be getting more work. But the thing that I have to worry about is that if I get put in jail on some bullshit charges, that let's say he's not able to pay his rent, or he has a nervous breakdown, or any number of other things happens. I mean, my evidence is here. Somebody else might buy the house and just throw everything that's in it away. Fuck it, right? A lot of people say you need to let it go. The courts needed to let it go. The cops needed to let it go. The Bollingers needed to let it go when I was in Virginia in 2016. I'm sorry that Natalie was on heroin, but I didn't put that shit in her. She did, and her dad did. When she needed a friend, I didn't neglect her and treat her like shit the way that her mother did, the way that her family did. Her dad isn't the only person in her family who fucking molested her. Now, then there's Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, that whole situation. And you guys see how he's treated. You see how he's treated for coming out, for telling y'all how fucked up Hollywood is. But no, oh, of course not. Charlie Sheen would never do that.